There's no secret by now that Russia's war on Ukraine has targeted civilians and civilian infrastructure almost from day one. And sadly, it's also becoming clear that this onslaught of rocket and missile strikes is designed to maximize human suffering during the winter months. We see it daily in the footage, Russia's air campaign and the horror it brings. Tonight, though, for the first time, we have an exclusive look at ground-level fighting for what is reported to be the most hotly contested piece of territory in the entire war. CNN's Matthew Chance and his team have brought back the footage and the story, which is as raw and brutal as you might imagine. Matthew, thanks for being with us. What did you see?
Well, John, earlier we were in the strategic town of Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine, which is described by soldiers on the ground there as the hardest part of the front line. Constant artillery exchanges and very close quarter fighting, taking a terrible toll.
The brutal fight for Bakhmut, where Ukrainian troops are battling Russia's onslaught. These exclusive images are from the soldiers themselves. Their commanders tell us dozens of lives are now being sacrificed here every day. The road into town is heavy with thick smoke and danger. Explosions ahead force us to pull over before another slams into a building close by.
All right, well, you can hear the incoming rounds. The incoming rounds from Russian artillery fire are really intensive here as we have entered the outskirts of Bakhmut, which is, certainly from everything we're seeing, everything we've been told, is now the most fiercely contested patch of ground in the entire Russia-Ukrainian conflict.
Все, быстро, quickly.
Okay, let's go. So fierce, we made a rapid exit, leaving the relentless barrage behind.
Это не опасно здесь.
Much of this battle is fought avoiding the artillery threat. In underground bunkers like these, where local Ukrainian commanders like Pavlo can respond to Russian attacks. They're assaulting our positions from early morning till night, he tells me. But the real problem is we are heavily outnumbered, he says. But the innovative use of low-cost tech is helping to bridge that gap. In another frontline bunker, we saw how commercially available drones are giving Ukraine an edge.
Wow, that's incredible, because we've just seen an artillery strike in this position that the Ukrainian drone operators have identified as being full of Russians. Like you can see Russian soldiers, as we look at them live now, running for cover as Ukrainian artillery pounds their positions.
Yes, this is our position.
But battery commanders at the front line, like Tuman, tell me they're now running low on ammunition rounds. And that even guns sent from the United States are breaking under such constant strain. They need more of both, they say, if this battle for Bakhmut is ever to be won.
Matthew, what a remarkable perspective and amazing footage. First, I'm glad that you and your crew are okay. What did you hear about the impact of this assault on the Ukrainian soldiers on the front lines?
Well, of course, we were able to leave, but those Ukrainian soldiers have to stay to face on a daily basis that artillery barrage. They've also got the cold weather and the mud to contend with. So it's miserable. And as I mentioned, the casualties are very high indeed. It's high on the other side as well. I mean, the Russians, remember, are ploughing resources and manpower into the battle for Bakhmut. And even though they're making some progress, it's coming at a very high price for them as well, John.
So you talked about the battery commanders there, the Ukrainian battery commanders saying they're running low on ammunition and weapons. What else are they saying they need to hold the positions?
Well, I mean, they need a whole host of military supplies, warm clothing, vehicles, everything like that. But I mean, they're insisting that it's the weapons and the ammunition that are going to make the difference between whether this battle is won or lost. They need more weapons, they say, more ammunition, more artillery pieces, because the more they have, the more they could rotate them. And so they wouldn't have to use each individual item so much, and it would last longer and wouldn't break down. And so that's the renewed call tonight from these officers line for more weapons from the United States and from other countries around the world, John.
Matthew Chance, just amazing work. Thank you very much. Please stay safe. To Matthew's point about what these troops are going through, I want to turn to CNN military analyst and former Army Lieutenant General Mark Hartling. General, great to see you. What's your reaction? I know you were watching that as carefully as we all were. What's your reaction to that report we just saw from Matthew?
John, it is a throwback to World War I, the trench lines of World War I, where it's static fires, artillery duels, the requirement, as Matthew said, of more logistics, more ammunition. You know, watching that 777 cannon fire, watching in this picture right now that you're seeing the number of 50 caliber rounds that are being shot from that machine gun, and just the back and forth on a static defensive line that has been in place for 8 years now. This isn't something that's just happened since the start of the war in February. They've been fighting in the Donbass, the Ukrainians have, for 8 years now. So they know this terrain, they know the targeting. As you saw, they have advanced targeting systems with the drones and the computers, which I would bet you don't see on the Russian side. The Russians are just using artillery as area fire weapons, and the Ukrainians are trying to do more precise firing. But notwithstanding all of that, you have to talk a little bit about the physical aspects and the psychological aspects of combat. You know, as you just said to Matthew, he's able to leave there. He spends a day with them and then it departs. But I'm sure tonight at 3 o'clock in the morning, which it is right now in Ukraine, with temperatures below freezing, those same troops are looking through night vision goggles, continuing the fight under unbelievable physical pressure. Their ammunition is running low. The cannons are firing out their tubes. It's not so much the artillery rounds that are causing the problems. They're firing so many rounds, thousands of rounds a week, that their tubes burn out. So all of those things are factors. And then you add the psychological component, constantly being under shelling, constantly being in the cold, the smells, the sights, the sound of warfare. You know, John, I can only compare it to my own experiences. Desert Storm. You know, we were on the attack for 4 days without a lot of sleep, with some artillery attacks, but then it was over. You know, Operation Iraqi Freedom, where we were deployed for 15 months, but the fights in that kind of combat were sporadic. There were terror-involved incidents that would happen arbitrarily as units did patrol. What you're seeing now on the front lines of Ukraine is just constant fighting, and it will drain on individuals and really cause some both physical effects and psychological effects.
You mentioned the temperature. Earlier today, NATO Secretary General accused Putin of using, quote, winter as a weapon. How does winter and the temperatures play for both sides here?
Well, you know, it's equal. The weather plays an equal part on both sides, truthfully. But what you're talking about is the preparedness and the discipline within the force. What we've seen in the Russian force so far is a lack of discipline, a lack of leadership, poorly equipped. They're not prepared to address the kinds of things that are associated with winter warfare. You know, oil for equipment, the kinds of things you need to stay dry, the uniforms that will keep you warm. What NATO is providing Ukraine right now is the type of uniforms they need to sustain themselves. They have the shelters. I saw a picture the other day of a Russian shelter that was basically saran wrap wrapped around trees just to keep the wind out. The Ukrainians have tents. They have underground shelters. So the combination of equipment, performance, standards, and discipline, in my view, even though weather is equal to both sides, will give Ukraine the advantage in this winter fight, but it's still going to be very tough. The other thing that's important is during the winter, the daylight, certainly less time of daylight that you can fight. The Ukrainians have night vision devices that they can see during the nighttime. So, you know, all of those things play a part, and I give the Ukrainians the upper hand in a winter fight in this.
Retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, we always learn so much from you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, John.